Jake Morrison stood in the center of the great council chamber. The room was huge, bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. Above him, strange lights moved in patterns that hurt his eyes. Around him sat creatures from dozens of worlds, each one more alien than the last. The Zephyrians looked like living crystals that sang when they moved. Their bodies caught the light and threw it back in rainbow colors. The Mindari were tall and thin, with large black eyes that seemed to see right through him. They never spoke out loud, but somehow their thoughts filled the air around them. Jake wore his best uniform, the blue and gold of Earth's diplomatic service. On his chest were the symbols of his world, a small blue planet that most of these beings had never heard of before today. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. "Humans," said Council Prime Zelther, his voice like grinding metal. The insect-like creature was 3 times Jake's height, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red. "You come before us asking to join our great council. Tell us, what makes your species worthy of this honor?" Jake had practiced this speech 1,000 times. "We are a young species, but we are willing to learn. We have fought many wars, yes, but we have also learned to make peace. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves." A sound like laughter came from the Luxon representative, though it was made of pure energy and had no mouth. "Wars," it said, its voice like static. "Always wars with these creatures. They know nothing but violence." "That is not true," Jake said, trying to keep his voice calm. "We have artists and scientists. We have people who spend their lives helping others. We have mothers who would die to protect their children, and fathers who work every day to build a better world." Zelther's mandibles clicked together. "Emotion. Another weakness. You make decisions based on feelings, not logic. You are too primitive for this council." Outside the great ship, Captain Lisa Hayes watched the meeting through her screen. She commanded the human escort vessel Defender, a small ship compared to the massive alien vessels around them. Her crew was made up of Earth's best, but they all felt very small in this place. "This isn't going well," said her second officer, Lieutenant Ben Carter. He was young, maybe 25, with the kind of eager face that made Lisa remember why she had joined the space service. "No," Lisa agreed. "It's not." On the screen, Jake was still trying to explain human nature to beings who had never felt fear or anger or love. "We have something you might not understand," he said. "We call it courage. When others are in danger, we risk our own lives to save them. When we give our word, we keep it, even if it costs us everything." The Mindari representative's thoughts touched Jake's mind like cold fingers. "Courage," it said without speaking. "You mean the inability to calculate risk properly. This is not a strength." "We have watched your species," said the Zephyrian speaker, its voice like singing glass. "You fight wars over land, over resources, over ideas. You kill your own kind. You are barbarians." Jake's face grew red. "We are not barbarians. We are a species that has learned to be better than we were. Every mistake we made taught us something. Every war ended with peace that lasted longer than the one before." "Enough," Zelther said, raising all 4 of his arms. "We have heard your words. We will vote." The vote was quick and brutal. Every species voted no. The Zephyrians sang their refusal. The Mindari filled the air with thoughts of rejection. The Luxons flickered with disapproval. Even the smaller species, the ones Jake had hoped might understand, turned away from humanity. "The decision is final," Zelther announced. "Humans are too primitive, too violent, too emotional for this council. You will leave our space and not return." Jake felt his heart sink. All the hope, all the dreams of his people joining the galactic community, crushed in a single moment. But he stood straight and proud. "We understand your decision," he said. "We will respect it." As Jake walked out of the chamber, he felt the eyes of 100 alien species on him. They saw him as a barbarian, a creature of violence and emotion. They could not understand that these things they saw as weaknesses were actually humanity's greatest strengths. Captain Hayes was waiting for him in the docking bay. "I'm sorry, Jake," she said. "I know how much this meant to you." "It's not over," Jake replied. "Someday they'll understand what we really are." As the human ships prepared to leave, something appeared on the long-range sensors. Lieutenant Carter was the first to see it. "Captain," he said, his voice tight with worry, "you need to see this." On the screen was a fleet of ships unlike anything in the galactic database. They were huge, dark things that seemed to eat the light around them. Their shapes were wrong, like something from a nightmare. They moved with purpose toward the center of the galaxy. "How many?" Lisa asked. "Thousands," Carter whispered. "Maybe tens of thousands." The alien council was about to learn that there were worse things in the galaxy than human barbarians. Much worse things. In the council chamber, alarms began to sound. The beings who had just rejected humanity were about to face something that would make them wish they had never dismissed the fighting spirit of Earth. Captain Ryan Cole had been exploring the outer rim of the galaxy for 3 years. His ship, the Explorer, was not built for fighting. It was a science vessel designed to study new worlds and make maps of unknown space. But today it would see more action than any warship. "Captain," called out Engineer Beth Williams from her station, "I'm getting some strange readings from the research station on Kepler 7. Their signals just ... Ryan frowned. Research stations did not just go quiet. "How long since their last transmission?" "About 6 hours," Beth replied. She was a small woman with quick hands and a mind that could solve any technical problem. "Should I try to reach them again?" "Yes, and plot a course for Kepler 7. Something's not right." Tactical Officer Danny Rodriguez looked up from his weapons console. The young man had joined the crew straight from the academy, eager to explore the galaxy. "Captain, the station had a full staff of 200 people. Scientists from 12 different species. They wouldn't all go silent at once." "That's what worries me," Ryan said. The Explorer moved through space toward the research station. It should have been a routine check, the kind of thing Ryan's crew did every week. But as they got closer, the sensors showed something that made everyone on the bridge go quiet. The station was still there, but it was wrong. The metal walls had strange growths on them, like some kind of alien plant. The lights were out, and no ships were in the docking bays. Worst of all, there were no life signs. Not one. "Take us in closer," Ryan ordered. "But keep the shields up." As they approached, they saw the ships. Dozens of them, unlike anything in the galactic database. They were huge and dark, with surfaces that seemed to move and change. They looked alive, like giant insects made of metal and shadow. "Captain," Beth said, her voice shaking, "those ships, they're not just metal. Their reading is organic, like they're alive." Before Ryan could respond, the alien ships turned toward them. There was no communication, no warning. They simply began to move, fast and silent, toward the Explorer. "Red alert," Ryan shouted. "All hands to battle stations. Danny, raise shields. And prepare weapons." "Shields up," Danny replied. "But Captain, our weapons are designed for asteroid mining and defense against pirates." "These ships are huge," the first alien ship fired. The weapon was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was not a beam or a missile, but something that seemed to reach out and grab their ship. The Explorer shook as something tried to pull it apart from the inside. "Shields down to 60%, Beth reported. "Whatever they're using, it's eating through our defenses." Ryan had fought pirates before, but this was different. These aliens did not want to capture his ship or steal his cargo. They wanted to destroy it, to consume it completely. Return fire, he ordered. Danny fired their mining lasers at the nearest enemy ship. The beams hit the alien vessel, but instead of damage, the ship seemed to absorb the energy. It grew brighter, stronger. Our weapons are feeding it, Danny said in horror. It's eating our laser fire. More alien ships surrounded them. The Explorer was trapped, outnumbered 50-1. Ryan made the only choice he could. All power to engines. We're running. The Explorer fled from the alien fleet, but not before Ryan saw something that would give him nightmares for years to come. The alien ships were landing on the research station. Things were coming out of them, moving across the station's hull. Like spiders, they were not just destroying the station. They were changing it, making it part of themselves. Meanwhile, in the core systems of the galaxy, the great alien civilizations were learning that their advanced technology meant nothing. Against this new threat, the Zephyrians, with their perfect crystal ships, watched in horror as the alien vessels tore through their formations like paper. Commander Thulver, the greatest Zephyrian military leader, led a fleet of 1,000 ships against the invaders. His vessels moved in perfect harmony, their crystal hulls singing as they fired their pure energy weapons. But the alien ships did not die. They absorbed the energy, grew stronger, and struck back with weapons that turned the beautiful crystal ships into dust. The Mindari tried to use their telepathic abilities to communicate with the invaders, to understand what they wanted. But when their thoughts touched the alien minds, they found only hunger. A terrible, endless hunger that wanted to consume everything. The Mindari who made contact screamed and fell unconscious. Some never woke up. The Luxans, beings of pure energy, thought they would be safe. How could anything hurt creatures made of light itself? They learned the answer when the alien ships began to eat energy directly from space. The Luxans were not destroyed. They were consumed, absorbed into the alien vessels like food. Back on the council ship, Zeltha received reports from across the galaxy. Every fleet that engaged the invaders was destroyed. Every world they visited was left empty, drained of life. The alien ships were not just attacking, they were feeding. What are they? Asked the Zephyrian representative, its song now full of fear. We call them the Void Hunters, said the ship's ancient computer. They were mentioned in the oldest records, from civilizations that died out millions of years ago. They are not from our galaxy. They come from the empty space between galaxies, and they feed on life and energy. How do we fight them? Zelther demanded. The old records do not say, the computer replied. Every civilization that faced them was destroyed. As the reports came in, the proud alien species began to understand the truth. Their advanced technology, their perfect logic, their refined culture, none of it mattered against an enemy that existed only to consume. The Void Hunters had been asleep in the darkness between stars, but now they were awake and hungry. Same council that had rejected humanity as barbarians now faced a truth that would humble them. In the face of absolute destruction, all their advancement meant nothing. They needed something the Void Hunters had never faced before. They needed something unpredictable, something that fought not with logic, but with desperation. They needed barbarians. Captain Sam Mitchell had fought in the Martian Wars, the Europa Rebellion, and the Asteroid Belt conflicts. He had seen humanity at its worst and its best. When the news of the Void Hunters reached Earth, he was not surprised by what happened. Next, they want us to run, he told his crew aboard the warship Courage. High Command says we should retreat to the outer colonies and wait for the aliens to handle this. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan laughed, but there was no humor in it. The same aliens who called us barbarians, the ones who said we were too primitive to join their club, "Those are the ones," Sam replied. "But I have a different idea. We're going to fight." The crew of the Courage was made up of volunteers from across human space. They were not the best trained or the best equipped, but they had something the alien fleets lacked. They had fought desperate battles before, and word spread quickly through the human colonies. Captain Sam Mitchell was gathering a fleet to fight the Void Hunters. No one ordered him to do it. No government told him he had to. He simply decided that someone needed to stand up to these monsters, and it might as well be him. Ships came from everywhere. Old cargo vessels with mining lasers welded to their hulls. Patrol boats that had fought pirates in the outer systems. Even civilian ships whose crews had added whatever weapons they could find. It was not a pretty fleet, but it was ready to fight. The first battle happened near the colony world of New Texas. The Void Hunters had just finished consuming a Zephyrian research station when Sam's fleet arrived. The alien ships turned toward them, expecting another easy meal. They were wrong. "All ships, this is Captain Mitchell," Sam broadcast to his fleet. "Remember what we learned in the war colleges. These things expect logical tactics. So we're going to do something they won't expect. We're going to be human." The human ships did not form neat battle lines like the aliens did. Instead, they came in from all directions, each captain making their own decisions. Some ships flew straight at the enemy, firing everything they had. Others circled around, looking for weak spots. A few even rammed the Void Hunter vessels, sacrificing themselves to damage the enemy. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan was aboard a small fighter, darting between the massive alien ships. She had discovered something important during the first few minutes of battle. "Captain," she called over the radio, "these things hesitate when we do something unexpected. Watch this." Instead of firing at the alien ship's weapons, Kate aimed her missiles at what looked like a random spot on the hull. The Void Hunter vessel tried to adapt, to protect itself, but it could not figure out why she was attacking that particular spot. In that moment of confusion, Kate's missiles broke through its defenses. "Did you see that?" she shouted. "It doesn't know how to deal with randomness. It's too logical." Captain Mitchell understood immediately. "All ships, forget your training. Fight like humans. Be unpredictable. Be crazy if you have to." The battle turned into something the galaxy had never seen before. Human ships fought with desperation and creativity. When their weapons failed, they used their ships as weapons. When their shields fell, they kept fighting anyway. The Void Hunters, who had consumed dozens of alien fleets, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy they could not understand. Major Chris Adams was leading a boarding party on a damaged Void Hunter ship. His team included demolitions expert Maria Santos and pilot Tony Chun. They had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. "The ship's alive," Maria reported as they moved through the alien corridors. "These walls are breathing. It's like being inside a giant stomach." "Then let's give it indigestion," Chris replied. They planted their explosives not where logic would suggest, but where human instinct told them to. In places that felt wrong, that made them uncomfortable. The Void Hunter ship tried to stop them, growing new defenses, but it could not predict where these strange creatures would strike next. When the charges exploded, the alien ship died. But more importantly, its death scream was heard by every other Void Hunter in the area. For the first time in millions of years, they felt something they had never experienced before. Fear. The news of the human victories spread through the galaxy faster than any official communication. Alien refugees fleeing from their destroyed worlds told stories of the crazy humans who fought impossible battles and won. They spoke of human soldiers who shared their food with alien survivors, even when they did not have enough for themselves. One story was told again and again across the galaxy. A human rescue ship had found a group of Zephyrian children hiding in the wreckage of their world. The human captain, a woman named Carol Price, had given the children her own ship's food supplies and escorted them to safety. When asked why, she had simply said, "They're kids. That's what you do." The aliens began to understand that they had been wrong about humanity. These were not barbarians who fought for conquest or pleasure. These were people who fought because someone had to, who risked everything to protect others, even strangers, who had rejected them. In the council chambers, Zelther received a report that changed everything. The humans have destroyed 12 Void Hunter ships and saved over 50,000 alien civilians. They are asking for nothing in return. Nothing? Zelther asked. Nothing. They simply say it is the right thing to do. For the first time in his long life, Zelther began to understand what Jake Morrison had been trying to tell him. Humanity's emotions were not weaknesses. They were strengths. The same feelings that made humans cry at sad movies also made them fight impossible battles to save strangers. The Void Hunters were learning this too. They had consumed civilizations that fought with perfect logic and advanced technology. But humans fought with something else. They fought with heart, with courage, with the simple refusal to give up when others needed them not, and for the first time in their ancient existence, the Void Hunters began to retreat. Admiral Helen Brooks had never expected to receive a message like this. She stood in her command center aboard the human flagship Liberty, staring at the communication that had just arrived from the Galactic Council. The same beings who had called. Humans barbarians were now asking for help. "Play it again," she told her communications officer, Lieutenant Paul Green. The hologram flickered to life, showing Council Prime Zelther. But this was not the proud, arrogant creature who had rejected humanity months ago. This Zelther looked broken, desperate. His red eyes were dim, and his voice shook as he spoke. "To the humans of Earth," he began, "I am Zelther, Prime of the Galactic Council. I come before you not as a leader, but as a being who has watched his civilization crumble. The Void Hunters have taken 70% of our worlds. Billions are dead. Billions more are hiding in the ruins of their cities, waiting for death to find them." Helen felt her heart clench. She had children of her own, safe on Earth. She could not imagine watching them face such horror. Zelther continued, "We were wrong about your species. We called you barbarians because you fight with emotion, because you make decisions based on feeling rather than logic. We thought this made you weak. We were fools." The alien leader's voice broke. "We have learned that logic means nothing against an enemy that exists only to destroy. Our perfect strategies fail. Our advanced weapons are useless. We need something we do not have. We need the courage to fight when there is no hope of victory. We need the strength to protect others, even when it means our own death." Helen looked around her command center. Her crew was made up of humans from every colony, every background. They were not perfect. They made mistakes, they argued, they sometimes acted without thinking. But they were here, ready to fight for people who had rejected them. "We beg you," Zelther said, "help us. Not because we deserve it, but because there are children in the galaxy who will die if you do not. There are mothers and fathers who will watch their families consumed by these monsters. We offer you nothing in return because we have nothing left to give. We can only ask you to be what we never understood you already were, heroes." The message ended, leaving Helen's command center in silence. She looked at her crew, seeing the same emotions she felt reflected in their faces. Anger at how humanity had been treated, sadness for the suffering of innocent people, and determination to do what was right, regardless of the cost. "Orders, Admiral?" asked Commander Frank Robinson. Her second-in-command. Helen did not hesitate. "Send a message to every human ship in the galaxy. Tell them to prepare for the largest military operation in human history. We're going to war. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Human ships began moving toward the galactic core from every corner of space. Veterans of old conflicts left their retirement homes to rejoin the fleet. Factory workers converted civilian ships into warships. Families donated their savings to buy supplies for the rescue operations. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, coordinated the massive operation from Earth. The same man who had been rejected by the Council was now leading humanity's greatest military campaign. He did not do it for glory or recognition. He did it because children were dying, and someone had to help them. The human fleet that assembled was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was not organized like the perfect alien formations. Human ships were scattered across hundreds of star systems, each group making their own plans, each captain deciding how best to fight. But they were united by something stronger than military discipline. They were united by purpose. Colonel Frank Robinson led the first rescue mission to the Zephyrian homeworld. His ships broke through the Void Hunter blockade, not with superior technology, but with tactics that made no logical sense. Some ships pretended to retreat, drawing the enemy away from the planet. Others hid in asteroid fields, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. A few simply charged straight at the enemy, screaming human war cries over the radio. The Void Hunters, used to predictable enemies, could not adapt fast enough. Human ships slipped through their defenses and landed on the crystal world below. Human soldiers, armed with simple weapons and wearing basic armor, fought their way through alien biomechanical creatures to reach the evacuation sites. Captain Linda Torres was one of the first humans to reach the Zephyrian refugees. She found them hiding in the ruins of their beautiful crystal cities, too afraid to move. These were the same beings who had called humans primitive, but now they looked at her with hope. "We're here to help," Linda said simply. "Can you walk?" The rescue operation took 3 days. Human ships flew mission after mission, carrying Zephyrian civilians to safety. They lost dozens of vessels, hundreds of crew members, but they never stopped. When the last transport ship left the dying world, it carried over 2 million Zephyrian refugees. Similar operations were happening across the galaxy. Human forces struck at Void Hunter supply lines, disrupted their communications, and rescued survivors from dozens of worlds. They used every trick they had learned from humanity's own wars, adapted to fight an enemy that consumed everything it touched. The turning point came when Admiral Brooks received intelligence about the Void Hunter command structure. Lieutenant Tony Chun, a pilot who had survived 3 boarding actions, brought her information that changed everything. "They're not just eating randomly," he reported. "They're building something. A massive structure in the Centralist system. If they complete it, they'll be able to consume entire star systems at once." Helen looked at the tactical display. Centralist was the heart of the old Galactic Council, protected by the largest concentration of alien ships in the galaxy. It was also where the Void Hunters had gathered their greatest force. "How many ships do we have?" she asked. "Every human vessel in the galaxy," Robinson replied. "About 3,000 ships of all sizes." "And the enemy?" "Over 10,000 Void Hunter vessels, plus whatever they've built from the destroyed alien fleets." Helen nodded. Those were terrible odds, but humans had faced worse before. Send the message. All human ships converge on Centralus. We end this now. As the human fleet prepared for its final battle, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Alien refugees, saved by human courage, sent their thanks. Zephyrian children drew pictures of human soldiers. Mindari telepaths shared their thoughts of gratitude. Even the energy beings of the Luxons, few as they were, sang songs of human bravery. The galaxy had learned that barbarians were not those who fought with emotion and sacrifice. Barbarians were those who stood by and watched while others suffered. And humanity, the species they had rejected, was about to prove that civilized people fight for each other, no matter the cost. The final battle began above the world of Centralus, where the Galactic Council had once met to reject humanity. Now the same space was filled with the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, facing an enemy that wanted to consume everything. Captain Rick Johnson looked out at the massive Void Hunter command ship through the viewport of his vessel, the Defiant. The alien structure was the size of a small moon, covered in biomechanical growths that pulsed with stolen energy. Around it, thousands of enemy ships waited in perfect formation. "All ships, this is Admiral Brooks," came the voice over the radio. "Remember what we're fighting for. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for the right of all living beings to exist. Today, we show the galaxy what it means to be human." Rick's crew was made up of volunteers from across human space. Engineer Nancy White had left her family on Mars to join the fight. Communications Officer Kevin Lai had been working on a deep space mining platform when the call came. Weapons Officer Gary Thompson was barely 20 years old, but he had grown up hearing stories of human courage. "Enemy ships are moving," reported Navigator Susan Clark. "They're forming an attack pattern." "Let them come," Rick replied. "We've got something they don't expect." The human fleet did not wait for the enemy to attack. Instead, they charged forward, each ship choosing its own path through the alien formation. It looked like chaos, but it was organized chaos. Every captain knew their job, and every crew was ready to die for the mission. The Void Hunters had faced many enemies over the millions of years they had existed. They had consumed civilizations that fought with perfect logic, advanced technology, and superior numbers. But they had never faced anything like humanity. Human ships broke through their lines, not because they were stronger or faster, but because they were unpredictable. Some vessels flew straight at the command ship, drawing enemy fire. Others circled around, hitting weak spots that no logical analysis would target. A few even used their ships as shields, protecting smaller vessels that carried the real attack. Boarding teams, prepare for launch. Admiral Brooks commanded from the Liberty. She was leading the most dangerous part of the mission herself. They were going to take shuttles directly into the enemy command ship and destroy it from within. The shuttles launched into the middle of the battle. Enemy fire lit up space around them, but human pilots flew with a skill born of desperation. They dodged between the massive Void Hunter ships, using the enemy's own vessels as cover. Rick Johnson's shuttle was the first to breach the command ship's hull. As his team cut through the biomechanical walls, they found themselves inside something that was part machine, part living creature. The corridors pulsed like blood vessels, and the air was thick with an alien smell. "Stay together," Rick ordered his team. "We find the control center and we blow it up." They moved through the alien ship, following instincts rather than maps. When they reached a junction, Nancy White would point in a direction that felt wrong, and that was the way they would go. The Void Hunter ship tried to stop them, growing new defenses and barriers, but it could not predict where these strange creatures would go next. Other human teams were fighting their way through different parts of the ship. They faced biomechanical guardians that were part of the ship itself, creatures that had once been other species, but were now consumed and changed. The humans fought them with weapons that should not have worked, tactics that made no sense, and a determination that the Void Hunters could not understand. In the ship's central core, Admiral Brooks and her team found what they were looking for. It was not a computer or a control room, but something alive. A massive brain that pulsed with the thoughts of the entire Void Hunter fleet. This was what controlled them all, what made their perfect coordination possible. "Plant the charges?" Brooks ordered. Her team worked quickly, placing nuclear explosives around the alien brain. They could feel its thoughts pressing against their minds, trying to understand them, to consume them, as it had consumed so many others. But human thoughts were too chaotic, too emotional, too random for it to grasp. "Charges set," reported Gary Thompson. "We have 2 minutes to get out of here." But Brooks shook her head. "The blast doors are sealed? We're not getting out." Her team looked at her, understanding what she meant. They were going to die here, in the heart of the enemy ship. But their sacrifice would save billions of lives. Across the galaxy. "Any regrets?" Brooks asked. Kevin Lee smiled. "Yeah, I wish I could see the look on that council leader's face when he realizes we actually did it." The nuclear charges exploded, destroying the command ship's brain and severing the connection between all Void Hunter vessels. Without their central coordination, the enemy fleet became confused, disorganized. Ships that had moved with perfect unity suddenly acted independently, often attacking each other by mistake. The human fleet pressed their advantage. Every ship in the battle threw everything they had at the confused enemy. Missiles, lasers, kinetic rounds, and in some cases, the ships themselves. Human vessels rammed into Void Hunter craft, their crews dying with smiles on their faces because they knew they were winning. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Void Hunter fleet was scattered and broken. The few surviving ships fled back to the empty space between galaxies, carrying with them the knowledge that there were some species that could not be consumed, some courage that could not be defeated. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council Chamber was rebuilt. But this time, humanity had a place of honor at the center table. Jake Morrison, now promoted to Ambassador General, sat where Council Prime Zelther once had. The alien leader, humbled by what he had witnessed, served as his advisor. "You were right," Zelther said to Jake during the first session of the new council. "We did not understand what strength really means. We thought it came from advanced technology or perfect logic. But true strength comes from the willingness to fight for others, even when you gain nothing from it." Jake looked around the chamber at the representatives of dozens of species. Many of them owed their lives to human courage. "We're not here to rule anyone," he said. "We're here to protect everyone. That's what civilized people do." The human fleet, now integrated with ships from every species in the galaxy, took up positions along the galactic rim. They watched the empty spaces between stars, ready to face whatever threats might come. And in the quiet moments between patrols, human crews still shared their food with alien friends, still told jokes that made no logical sense, still fought. For people they had never met, the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Barbarians were not those who fought with emotion and sacrifice. Barbarians were those who had power and did nothing when others suffered. And humanity, the species they had once rejected, had shown them what it truly meant to be civilized. In the new council chambers, children from every species played together under the protection of human guardians. Zephyrian crystal songs mixed with human laughter. Mindari thoughts touched human dreams. And in the darkness between stars, the Void Hunters remembered the species that had taught them fear. The universe was safer now, protected by those who understood that true strength comes not from advanced weapons or perfect strategies, but from the simple courage to stand up for others when they cannot stand up for themselves.